Hey everyone, welcome back to Data and Donuts. My name's Aaron. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Gio Sosa. Today we're going to talk about equity planning. But before we get into our conversation today, I would like Gio to tell us a little bit about himself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you, Aaron. My name, of course, Gio Sosa. My role is Dean of Institutional Effectiveness at Crafton Hills College. I've been at the college now for the better part of 5 or 6 years now. My background, education wise, is in quantitative methods, statistical theory, and application. I'm very interested, as you can imagine. I mean, just given our roles, given our background in patterns between data, patterns between variables, how we can use the analytics that we have at our disposal to make change in particular and to enhance that student experience.
Excellent. And so we'll jump into our first questions. Can you describe your experience with equity planning efforts at your institution?
Absolutely. I would say they're twofold, and as probably you can relate to, Aaron, and many folks that are watching or listening to this can. One aspect, maybe the more obvious, is in relation to the preparation and presentation of data findings, evidence, whether it be numerical or even qualitative, narrative based data. My role and our role at the office has been very much in taking the lead on presenting the evidence, identifying patterns, even guiding the focus of the audience to where the patterns are. And data can be intimidating, especially if you just drop a bunch of tables on folks' laps and say, here's the significant here, here's the significant. That can be overwhelming. And so I really see our role as being one providing folks where the focus areas ought to be. So rather than delving into the minutia of statistical assumptions and identifying all the different differences that we're finding as per test A or test B, really focusing the attention on what those overarching patterns are and identifying in the context of equity planning the groups that are being disproportionately impacted, the groups that we need to focus our efforts on to address those concerns. So that's one aspect. The other aspect I think is critical, maybe less obvious, is the planning aspect. And that has to do with taking that next step of not just identifying where those patterns are, not just identifying those groups that may need that support, but also working within the structure, or in some cases developing a planning process or structure or set of structures to help individuals or to help committees, to help the different folks at our college make those decisions and put in place the plans and the activities necessary to make that change. So I see it as at minimum as two steps. One, helping folks identify those target groups, those populations that we need to do a better job of better serving. And then two, developing a process by which we can come to the point of making decisions of identifying those activities, those strategies that are worth pursuing. And of course, on the back end, identifying also a set of measurements or a plan for assessing the effectiveness of those plans.
I think that's a really great approach to taking things. I think some of the key points that I took out of that is really looking at roles that you and I may share is not just to providers of data or sharing of information, but helping individuals navigate through. I think that's a key point. And then really giving them a navigational map with your planning structures, processes, opportunities to collaborate and share their ideas. And I think that's really how we get to that, what I call a treasure point, where we can uncover those opportunities to facilitate change for our students. And so with that, would you like to share any success stories that you have in relation to equity planning?
Oh gosh. Oh, I have more than you probably care to hear. I'll share one of my recent experiences. One that I just honestly, when I think about, even as you were posing the question, the first one, the most salient one that came to mind, and that's with respect to, in fact, the experience I had with the small cohort. So I could go into all sorts of experience, but this one really resonates with me because this one was with faculty. This one was with faculty doing the work of looking at equity related issues in their classes. So not looking at the college as a whole, not even looking at a particular program of study This faculty voluntarily looking at data for the classes that they teach and asking themselves questions like, can I do something differently for X, Y, and Z students? Why is it that those students are underperforming? What could I be doing differently to help address the challenges that these students are having in my classes? And so being part of those conversations, helping to elucidate some of those patterns for individual faculty, seeing their thoughts and just seeing that thought process unfold and just in their countenance and their expressions. And then, of course, seeing the resulting change and plans that they've implemented to address gaps that they're identifying in their specific classes, that is so gratifying to me. I mean, there's so much work that we do in our role to help advance the equity efforts at our college, but seeing at a more granular level the realization that individual people are having over what they can do as individuals to help address those immediate students that they work with and that they serve is just incredibly gratifying. And I am so excited about what we can do moving forward in terms of expanding those efforts so that we can broaden that reach across the college in a more systematic fashion.
I think creating that inclusive environment to facilitate those open collaborations with faculty, giving them the opportunity to explore, I think that opportunity is something that can be career changing, behavioral changing, and just, giving that reflection point time in a safe manner where people can feel open and honest about what they're observing. It really helps, like you said, change the game in what we're doing, as opposed to maybe what I would almost call a a buffet of data where you can just go and self-serve data, but really brings it to life. So like I said, I think this is something we may want to further talk about in another talk. I really like the idea and how, bring others into the conversation with data instead of just almost giving just instruction or direction to look at data. So that's awesome. And so I wanted to go to one of my final questions, which is, what advice would you provide to others developing out their equity plans?
Oh gosh, I would say for starters, as tempting as it may be, because given our backgrounds, of course, many of us have that expertise and that wealth of knowledge as it relates to data and to statistical findings, statistical output. And so what I would say is to refrain, as tempting as it may be, from delving too far into some of the minutia or some of that granularity in relation to those data points, and focus on the bigger picture. Folks, of course, have an interest in the data and aspects related to what the findings are pointing to out to them, but they may not have likely the sophistication that we do. And so it's best from my standpoint, or in my opinion, to focus on the overarching patterns, focus less on the minutia and more on providing people with visuals, engaging visuals that put a spotlight on just that, what the patterns are, what are the groups that need more assistance with. That will go a long way in helping to, I argue, a longer way in helping to shape the overall college's efforts on addressing equity gaps than preparing a 15 or 20-page document that has asterisks all over the place and has bar charts for this group and for that group. Having simple displays, a limited number of simple displays that carefully delineate the groups that need assistance, I think will go a long way. So that I have more, but that for starters, I would say that would be one piece I would stress, keeping it simple and helping to guide the conversation on what those overarching patterns are.
I feel like our conversation today could probably be almost a novel of just cool things and approaches on how to do stuff. So like I said, we're going to have another conversation on Data and Donuts about this. And like I say, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in and sharing some of this. And so my final bonus question is, what do you prefer more, coffee or tea, and which kind?
What was it? The second part, coffee or
Tea.
tea? Oh gosh. I can't say I'm much of a coffee drinker. So definitely tea. And tea, I've had friends that have introduced me to different kinds of tea because I haven't really been much of a tea person either. But when people introduce me to this tea or that variety, I love it. So I've come to realize like later in life that maybe I am sort of a fan of tea and I never knew it. Coffee, never really, I can't say really been into it. But tea over time, I would say I'm an aficionado in any way. But over time, people just introduce different varieties, and I'm beginning to realize maybe this is my thing. Maybe this is my thing after all.
That's interesting. Yeah, I have a tug of war myself with which one do I choose. I typically go with tea when even when I'm at a conference, but it's like,
Hmm.
what kind do they have? And then usually I'm just like, I'll just take whatever they got. So
Yes, me too.
excellent, excellent,
Me
cool.
too.
Well, thank you so much, Gio, for hanging out today and sharing just a little bit of the tons of insight that you have. And I look forward to seeing you again on here. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I love the conversation. I'm looking forward to it.